Welcome to another edition of Cattle Call. I'm Chad Moyer. Cattle Call is an original production of the Nebraska Rural Radio Association, brought to you in part with sponsorship from Wolf Auto, Small Town Strong. Check out their website and see the latest deals available from them. Again, Brad Kooima and Varilek at Sioux Center, Iowa, joins us for today's conversation. Brad, good to have you on the air. A few things that we mentioned last week seem to be coming to fruition. Basis, some deliveries against futures contracts. We'll hit on that and more in a moment. But first of all, just kind of what do you think is the status of marketing cattle these days, where we ended up just at least steady, maybe feeling like there's a little optimism in the cash market now? What do you think's going on?
I think you've got that read pretty well, Chad. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for those kind words. The cash market, to wrap up where we finished up last week. A little bit of a two-story deal where the South had bid premium the North for a pretty good spell here. Last week, the South basically hardly traded cattle, and they were bid like 235-ish, maybe just a trickle of cattle that traded that way. The North, the cattle that we traded up here in the North was about 235. At least that was the best of it by Friday. And 235 was quite a bit better. A week prior to that, we were basically at 230. So $5 last week was a whale of a nice move. So now you've got, I know different people read I've heard different numbers this week for some reason. And I'm going to go with the numbers that I think are most accurate on show list, because it has something to do with what you just asked me. So the South hardly traded cattle last week, so you carry those cattle over, right? So it's probable that you'll have more cattle for sale, and they certainly do based on the data that I look at. On the other side of the coin, though, you've got a packer now that's used up inventory. He's going to be closer to the knife. In other words, he needs to buy some more cattle. And usually, lately with this tight supply market that we've got, the leverage falls in the favor of the feed yard, and that works. And so I think to answer your end of your question there's a fair amount of enthusiasm, a lot of asking prices up in this 240 range. North and South, no trade there yet. But with the basis the way it is, I think the hedger for sure is going to say we need to get closer to our futures are before we're going to trade cash cattle.
Sure. Before we talk about that, just your thoughts on the fact that there, like you said, hardly any trade in the South. Why is that significant? How does that set things up for this week? Because it wasn't very long ago, they were kind of getting rid of cattle as fast as they could in the South, and the prices were lagging because of that, right, Brad?
100%. And I just quickly snuck a peek at my notes from day before yesterday, because I thought maybe you were going to even go there with the 15 to 30 day. You and I both look at those same kind of numbers of fundamentals. Only 10,779 on the 15 to 30 day. What, of course, I'm talking about with Chad here is the bucket that is negotiated cash is 0 to 14 or 15 to 30, and you do get a number. That's a small number, by the way, and that's a good thing usually for cash. So to answer your question, I think you've got a as conscious effort ever in the South and in the North, because of the basis flip where futures are telling you now, hey, you should wait. Don't sell cash cattle. Wait. The market's telling you to go higher. Exactly the opposite of what we had all spring and summer and most of the first part of the fall, where it was like, oh, the futures are a big discount. You're lucky to get this price for cash. You better keep moving them before the market goes down. And I think, I know this is somewhat psychological, and maybe this is a little bit of a reach on my part, but yeah, you sense that, after this, the market's been good this long, you're getting some of the producers that are like, shit, we're bulletproof. We're fine. This thing is, we're never going to go down. I might as well just keep what I got. And that, of course, fits into the deal of cheap feed, high price replacement feeder cattle cost. Might as well feed what I have. It's paid to do it before. So we'll see. I worry a little bit that basis play, not just in the October, but in December, cattle are like almost $5 above where October is. There's great incentive to hold cattle into that Ocnov time period. So we'll see how that plays out. We need to see the demand catch here when we get to Thanksgiving. We'd better get those middles up and going because the boxes right now, we're $60 off the highs.
Mm-hmm. All right. And something else that you mentioned here too in your opening comments, we previewed it last week, the fact because there was kind of a flip in the market, it's trying to right itself, it feels like, but there was that flip. We were wondering if there were going to be some fat cattle deliveries against futures. Is that happening? What are you seeing?
I'm surprised yes. Yesterday afternoon there was 10 loads tendered, and I'm surprised it's taken this long actually. But I mean, the function of the market, right? If this is your best bid, where futures are, and futures are at almost 242, and if you're getting bid 235, pretty understandable, right? That's it doesn't cost you $7 to make delivery. Probably cost you a little over two. I was a little surprised it was in Amarillo though. I think everybody expects the South to go back premium the North, and so let's just say the North gets 237 or 8, that the South ought to be getting 240 or 41 then. But it is what it is. I don't know who delivered 10 loads. It's certainly not a dramatic number of cattle, but it might start a little bit of a tumble, of a few more and a few more and a few more. Depends on what cash feels like, I think, on Friday.
Okay. Just take a pause in the program here to let you know if you have a question that you'd like to ask Brad, by all means, put that in the comments below, and we'll come back and talk about it in future programs here on the Cattle Call program. You and I were talking before we went on the air here that you think there's a little bit of a demand question mark, beyond the packer. What are your feelings on that, or what should we be examining from the demand front, Brad?
Demand. Thanks for the question, and it's a difficult question. I'm going to give it a shot. There's a reason why us fundamentalists, and I'm one of the dinosaurs, that work so hard on the supply, because if you really work hard at it, you can get kind of an idea on supply. Okay, demand, the other side of that equation, is much more difficult. But there's a few tools. One, I guess I'd start with the choice select spread. The choice select spread at 14, 13 something is unusually narrow for this time of year. Even prior to COVID, this would be the narrowest it's been in several years. And so someone might listen to this and they'll say, well, but Brad, the average weights are really high. Yes, they are. That means these cattle are getting fed longer. The longer you feed, the better they grade. Maybe it's just because we have more choice. So it's a matter of supply, that there's more choice than normal. Could be a little of that. I wouldn't argue with that at all. But it could also be a reflection that maybe you're starting to see a bit of pushback on what the choice is costing relative to the select. And then I worry a little bit that there might be another connect the dot thing here with what we've seen in the overall box beef value. Now, I would say that going back to April already is when you started to see some kill cuts. Mm-hmm. Less cattle, don't get me wrong. It was a function of having less cattle. 3 months ago or so, the kill cuts got really active. I mean, like where Fridays were taking off. Just got done with one major plant in Colorado down for 10 days. Everybody took their turn at cooler cleanouts, which they have to do a couple times a year. But, so you really consciously, and a lot of the regional plants didn't kill on Friday several weeks in a row, right? The Omaha plants. And so you look at that and go, well, we really slashed the kill. And what happened to the box beef? Well, we went from 417 to 364. We still went down. Now, we always go down in October. I think you and I talked about that, but this is quite a big move. So I wonder a little bit, I don't know, not that I have any real empathy at all for a packer, but I wonder what their boardroom looks like. They go like, okay, so we cut the kill, still haven't got the boxes up. We're still losing a couple $100 a head. But we've got leverage, guys, and it's our turn. We've been out of turn. We've been abused enough times here when we've had too many cattle. I'm on our side. But I just bring up some of this stuff, that's why I also mentioned, I think we do need to see a nice seasonal rally in the middles like we've gotten the last several years. But there's a little more pressure on the market to see that once we get to, say that Thanksgiving week or the week after that, Chad. I'm hoping that we see, that robust demand and that high-priced rib cut, that middle meat. Because the hamburger thing is troublesome. We've lost some business in this hamburger deal. There's no doubt about it. But hopefully some things will come to bear that help that cause too.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like, like you said, the holiday run, the Christmas run, New Year's run, that's not that far away when you start you start mathing out, to get the cattle in, to get it worked, get it aged, and then have it ready for the consumer. So, like you say, hopefully that shows its head sooner rather than later. With the time that we have left, though, feelings for this week in terms of cash cattle trade, just saw just an inkling, I think, down in Kansas so far. What are you hearing? What's your feeling for cash for this week?
Well, not to throw that Kansas dude, I'm not going to use his name, but this guy's got a reputation of feeding poor quality and doing even a worse job of marketing them. So 236, I'm just being candid, right? That's the one you saw too. Yeah, we did too. Typically that would be the low of any of that whole region. So most of the guys I'm talking to are asking somewhere around 240. I think the South will get there. I don't know if the North will quite get there, but we'll see. I think with the futures the way they are priced up here at 242, I don't know why anybody would blink. So let's see if the backer doesn't. And if they do, it's probably going to be a late Friday trade. That's the way it usually works. The longer it takes, the better it gets. So let's see if we can get another 5 higher and get close to 240.
All right. Very good. Brad, I appreciate the insight. Folks would definitely love to have conversation, talk about some of these fundamentals, the technicals, and what's all going on, right?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I get a call once in a while. You wonder about, doing these programs. I got a call from a guy in Mexico yesterday afternoon and saw the show. And it was fascinating. A lot of it probably isn't necessarily shareable on this venue, but I did learn an awful lot about how the trade should work in terms of moving cattle from Mexico into the U.S.
Well, anyway, considering what we talked about, I'm glad that you're still here. No, I tease you.
Me too. I was like, that was the lack of transparency comment, right?
That's right. That's right. What is your contact information for folks to reach out?
You can see kkvtrading.com, but call us instead, 712-722-0023.
Brad, I appreciate the expertise. Thank you much. That's Brad Kooima and Varilek there at Sioux Center, Iowa. On this week's Cattle Call, again, it's brought to you by Wolf Auto, Small Town Strong. Have a great week. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ask a question in the comments below, and we'll talk to you next week on Cattle Call.